On a frozen December night in 1899, just hours before the world would step into a new century, a telegraph operator in upstate New York heard something that no human was supposed to hear. It was a signal, a pattern of electrical clicks and pulses coming from the western wilderness, repeating rhythmically, almost intelligently. But the most disturbing part wasn't the message itself, it was the origin. The signal came from Mount Oswego, an isolated peak where no telegraph lines had ever been placed, and where, according to local legend, no one who enters ever returns. Those clicks, steady, urgent, almost purposeful, were the last confirmed contact from the three men who vanished there in 1899. This is their story, and it's one America somehow forgot. Chapter 1: The Age of Progress. America in 1899 was brimming with the electricity of a new century. Railroads stretched like steel veins across the continent. Cities grew towers of brick and ambition. The telegraph, America's nervous system, connected Boston to San Francisco faster than any horse could ever dream. To most people, the United States felt unstoppable, indestructible. But in the small lumber town of Redwood Landing, bordered by the endless shadow of the Adirondack wilderness, progress arrived slowly, and not without consequence. Redwood Landing lived by two truths. The railroad paid the wages, and Mount Oswego was cursed. The mountain was a solitary peak rising like a jagged tooth from the forest. No paths, no settlers, no hunters dared approach it. The Mohawk people had once called it the mountain that remembers, a place where the earth itself held memories of those who had died there. No one knew how the legend started, but everyone knew how it was kept alive. Because every few years, someone would vanish at Mount Oswego, without a trace. Chapter 2: Three Men and a Mission. In December 1899, the New York Central Railroad sent three men to Redwood Landing: Elias Merrick, telegraph engineer; Dr. Samuel Beechworth, geologist; and Walter Crane, railroad inspector and Civil War veteran. Their mission was simple on paper: investigate geological interference affecting Telegraph Line 27B near the Oswego region. In truth, no one wanted the job. Telegraph operators had been complaining for months about strange disruptions in the line nearest the mountain. Rhythmic pulses, bursts of static, sequences resembling Morse code, and once a long, low electrical hum. One operator reported hearing a woman's voice through the static. Another swore the signal matched the pattern used by a Red Cross field unit during the Civil War. Both were dismissed as nonsense. But corporate reputation was king, and telegraph lines failing near a railroad line was unacceptable, especially at the turn of a new century. So the three men arrived in Redwood Landing on a snow-choked morning, unaware that the town watched them with quiet dread. Chapter 4: Warnings in the Snow. The men set up temporary headquarters in the telegraph cabin at the edge of town. The operator on duty, Henry Dawson, greeted them with a pale face and shaking hands. "You're going to the mountain, aren't you?" Elias laughed politely. "Just for an inspection." He swallowed. "Sir, the mountain doesn't like visitors." Samuel rolled his eyes. "Mountains don't like or dislike anything. They're just rock." "You haven't heard what comes through the wire," Dawson whispered. He guided them into the telegraph room. Snowstorm static hissed through the receiver. Then, click, 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 pause, click. Walter Crane stiffened. "That's structured. Someone's keying." "No one is out there. Not in this storm. Not for miles." The clicks rose steadily, forming a pattern. Elias scribbled the code on paper. His pencil slowed. Samuel saw his face drain. "What does it say?" Elias hesitated, then read, "There are 3 of you." The room went silent. Before anyone could respond, the signal cut into a shrill burst, like a scream buried beneath metal, and then vanished. Dawson whispered, "Turn back while you can." But the men had orders. Orders from New York City. Orders that did not include superstitions. Chapter 5. Into the White Unknown. The next morning they departed for Mount Oswego, with sleds, gear, and a sense of unease. The forest closed around them quickly, swallowing the world in silence. For hours they trudged in waist-deep snow. No wildlife, no tracks, no wind. Just the oppressive quiet of a wilderness that felt aware. At midday, Samuel stopped abruptly. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Elias held his breath. A faint metallic tapping echoed through the trees. Not natural, not wind. It sounded like someone tapping on telegraph wire, except there were no wires near them. Walter scanned the tree line, hand on his revolver. His military instincts were firing alarms. We're being watched. By who or what, he didn't say, because none of them wanted to think about it. Chapter 6. The Mountain That Remembers. Near dusk, they reached the foothills of Mount Oswego. It rose above them like a black monolith, its peak lost in swirling snow. Strange, rippling patterns marked the rock, almost like burn scars, but with perfect symmetry. Nature doesn't carve symmetry. Hands do. At the base of the mountain, Samuel found something half buried, a rusted Union Army canteen. But the Civil War had ended 34 years ago. Near it lay a telegraph insulator stamped with the date 1871. No telegraph lines were ever built here, Elias said, confused. Walter examined the canteen. This pattern, this dent, this is shrapnel damage from artillery on a mountain in New York. Whispered, "Something is wrong here, terribly wrong." As night fell, the men set camp, and that's when the clicking returned. Not through a wire, through the air. It bounced across the rocks, fast and frantic, like Morse code carried on the wind. Elias scribbled again. His hands shook. "What does it say?" Walter demanded.
The time is upon us.
Elias
Patience, young
whispered,
ones. We need to consider all outcomes.
"You should not have come." Chapter 6. The Lost Expedition. None of the men slept. At dawn, they climbed toward a crevice in the mountain that emitted faint warmth, unnatural warmth for a frozen peak. Inside, the walls glowed faintly with mineral veins. Samuel knelt beside them. "These aren't natural formations," he murmured. "They look arranged." Deeper inside, they found something that froze their blood. A rustic telegraph key, connected by a decayed wire to nothing. "It shouldn't be here," Elias said. "This is impossible." Beside the key lay a notebook, protected by waxed cloth. Walter opened it carefully. It belonged to an earlier inspection crew, dated November 1871. The final entry read, "Signals coming through the rock. Can't sleep. Voices not our own. The mount." Elias, trembling, translated. 3 entered. 3 will remain. Walter grabbed his revolver. "We're leaving this cursed place. Run." But the mountain had no intention of letting them go. Chapter 7. The Signal Home.
What happened next was pieced together only from the final telegraph record back in Redwood Landing. At precisely 8:42 p.m., Henry Dawson saw a sudden burst of activity on line 27B. Static surged into rhythmic pulses. He wrote down every beat, believing it to be interference, until he saw Elias Merrick's personal identifier in the sequence. It was a distress call. Dawson decoded frantically. "We are trapped. Mountain not natural. Something in rock. Walter gone. Samuel bleeding. Cave moves." Then a long pause. Then, "Can you hear us? Is anyone there?" Dawson replied desperately through the wire. There was no response. Only a final, slow sequence came through, so soft he barely heard it. "The mountain remembers." Then silence. Total, eternal silence. The line never activated again. Chapter 8. The Search That Found Nothing. A rescue team departed at dawn despite local protests. They reached Mount Oswego in 2 days. What they found was disturbing. The men's camp was untouched. Their food supplies were intact. Their equipment was neatly arranged. No footprints, no tracks, no struggle. The entrance to the warm cave was gone, sealed as if no crevice ever existed. But one thing chilled the rescuers to the bone. Near the camp, carved freshly into a tree, were 3 sets of initials: EM, SB, WC, carved in perfect alignment, carved impossibly deep, carved in solid winter-frozen wood, something a human hand couldn't do without splintering the trunk. And beneath the initials, "The mountain remembers." Chapter 9. The vanishing becomes a legend. The railroad company covered up the incident, citing avalanche, wildlife attack, extreme cold, none of which explained the telegraph messages. New York newspapers briefly mentioned 3 missing inspectors, then moved on. But Redwood Landing never forgot, nor did the telegraph operators, because sometimes, usually during winter storms, line 27B would flicker to life for a few seconds. Not enough to trace, just enough to hear faint rhythmic clicks, almost like Morse code, almost like voices carried across decades, almost like 3 men still trying to be heard. Epilogue. The Final Signal, 1925. 26 years after the disappearance, a young telegraph trainee in Albany, unaware of the legend, received a strange burst on an unused frequency during a blizzard. The message was short, barely readable, just 3 letters: EM, SB, WC, followed by "Still here." The signal ended. The mountain remained silent, and the mystery of Mount Oswego became one of America's most chilling, forgotten cases, buried under snow, stone, and the unbroken silence of a mountain that remembers everything.